Alright, so to get the motor shaft assembly off, I actually had to take the main case off right here. So this is the main case. This is what basically handles all of the high pressure for the machine. So what happens is, oops, I'm on the wrong side. So your charge pump will sit right here. The motor shaft pump sits right here. The charge pump generates its pressure. That pressure comes out of the back here, and it comes into this system right here. This system right here, if you look in the back in the back there, right in here where my finger's at, there are little cylinders. I can't remember exactly how many little cylinders there are. But your input pump right here will rotate back and forth like so. By rotating it back and forth, what happens is it changes the flow coming out of this charge pump going into the motor shaft pump. As this flow changes in the motor shaft pump, which is right here, this pump can then change directions and the power is transmitted via this gear right here. So all of that weight that your X or your 4-5 tractor is moving comes down to this one little gear right here, and it actually, in this particular case, for 1,300 and some odd hours, looks pretty darn good. Hopefully you can see that. I wonder how much that little thing is brand new. So anyway, that and the flow is right through there. Once all the high pressure is gone, the flow, it drains right back through into the reservoir, which is back here. Alright, so that is how the transaxle works in these machines. Now, this input shaft also continues straight back to the PTO pack, which is in here, which we'll take out next. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these parts cleaned up, get them out of the dirt, grime, everything else. Alright, so I figured I'd take a little bit more time to explain, or at least try to explain, how this pump system works. So this is the input shaft. You have the hydro fluid going through the main case. It's going to end up coming in here, and what it's going to do is, if you can see in there, you can see those springs. Hopefully you can see those springs. Well, the fluid is going to push into these little pistons right here. Those little pistons are then going to push on that swash plate right there, that's the plate that moves back and forth. Now this, at any one time, this assembly right here is connected to this shaft, so it's spinning one direction, the direction the engine's spinning. And what will happen is this is what changes the direction of the fluid, forward or backward, depending on how the swash plate's sitting, and it'll change how the fluid is directed through the main case to the motor drive right here. And then the motor drive converts that hydraulic pressure or hydraulic fluid to the power, to rotational force on a gear that drives the machine. So hopefully that makes enough sense. But this assembly right here is actually very, very fragile. You do not want to, when you take it off of here, and this very similar setup is in, say, like a Sunstrand 15U, things like that. I'm just going to move it back on here. I'm going to try to keep everything together. But if you look, so this is one of those little pistons, and this machine had 1,300 hours on it, and there's very little wear on those pistons. That's how tight the tolerances are, and that's also how important good hydraulic fluid is. Earlier in the video, or in an earlier video, I was talking about the brake discs, and one of the things with the brake disc is having a good fluid. Your brakes will work a lot better the better fluid you have. Just like tractor brakes or anything else, if they are wet disc brakes like this, if the better fluid you have, the better your brakes will work. Now that's not a big deal in such a small machine, but over time, big machines, and over time these plates will wear and everything. It's just as important. That same type of setup is going to be in this clutch pack for this PTO, which is right here, which we're fixing to take out in the next little bit. So now what I've done is I've gone ahead and removed this idler gear right here, and I'll probably remove the PTO shaft, the mid PTO shaft, which is just a snap ring right there. We'll pull this gear right here off, and then I believe we can pull the whole assembly out. So that's what we're going to do next.